And a good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Issues and Attitudes. My name is Jeff Owens, Interim Director at WEIU Radio. My co-host is EIU student Daniel Jones.
Hi, Jeff. Glad to be back.
Good to see you on a Monday. My guests today are Kim Carmean. She is Executive Director of Casa of East Central Illinois. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you.
And Dale Wolf. He's on the board of Casa and on many other boards and a community volunteer.
That's good.
There you go.
Thank you, Jeff.
So appreciate you all coming in. And yes, we are distanced as much as we can here in the room, and we wear masks right until the show. So if anybody is wondering, Dale, I know that it's been about a year or so since we've had anybody from Casa on. So before we get to Kim and some details about what's happening, why don't you give us an overview of what Casa is?
I think it's important that we start that way anyway, Jeff, because no matter how many years we do this, it seems like there's always somebody who doesn't know what Casa is or what the initials stand for. And Casa is Court-Appointed Special Advocate. In effect, it's children getting a voice in court by the people, a way to help them and help their families. And the official title of the organization is Casa of East Central Illinois. And that was changed a few years ago because we added an additional county that the organization covers. Before it was just Casa, now it's Casa of East Central Illinois.
And you've always kind of wanted to be involved with Casa since I've known you, right?
Absolutely. I've been on it, on and off 3 different times on the board, and totaling, 8, 9 years, whatever it is, because it's an organization that is really necessary in all parts of the state, not just here. So I think it's important for people to know when they hear the term, they know it's important, they know what it is, and they know what it stands for.
All right, Kim, as Executive Director, why don't we talk about some of your duties, and we'll get into some details of numbers and such, but, duties as the Executive Director of Casa.
As the Executive Director, it is my responsibility to make sure that the program runs smoothly. I'm involved in recruiting volunteers as well as board members. I oversee the day-to-day operations of our office and write grants and do fundraising and things like that.
What led you to this kind of job? Because this is not the job for anybody, as we get into some details later on. What led you to want to do this?
I actually became a volunteer first when my youngest child got his driver's license and didn't really need me to haul him around anymore. I was pretty bored, and I heard a radio ad about Casa, and I thought, I wonder what that's about. And that's just kind of what led me down the path.
Okay. Daniel, anything on your mind back there?
Yes, I was just going to ask, can you guys give us a little bit of background onto the services that the organization provides?
Sure. A judge appoints Casa to every child in Coles County that comes into the juvenile court system due to abuse or neglect by their parents. So when the judge appoints us, then we advocate for these children. We visit with them. We make sure they're receiving the services that they need. We make sure that their educational needs are being met, and we prepare reports and submit them to the judge before the court hearings, so the judge knows from an unbiased party what exactly is going on in each child's life.
Okay. When you think about this in Coles County, can you give us an idea, like on an average week? I mean, how many people, how many students, how many kids and youth are you dealing with?
We are right now, with Coles and Cumberland counties combined, we are serving 171 children.
And that's right now in 2020.
Right today.
Now, and that's when you think that's 171 children have been neglected in 2 of our adjoining counties here, to Coles County, or in Coles County and Cumberland. Is that a lot compared to previous years, or can you compare it? Do you have any data for the last couple of years?
With the pandemic, reports were down. Over 80% of the hotline report calls to DCFS come from teachers and educators, or somebody that works in that in the school. So our calls have been down. However, we're seeing an influx of infants, and these are newborn babies who have been born exposed or addicted to typically meth, sometimes cocaine. So that's kind of what we've seen. But now that the children are back into school, I expect to see an influx of cases reported.
Jeff, let me just add one piece of information going on with his question too, and that is the differentiation between board members and the advocate volunteers.
Okay.
Kim mentioned how she recruits both of these, and that's true. But there is a small difference in that the advocates volunteers are the ones who actually work directly with the families and do all that information, where the board members are actually overseeing the running of the organization, watching the budget, handling the events and so on. So they are, one is not the other.
Okay,
I think that's important to note too.
Yeah, and then an advocate, would they have more than one child, or would they be in charge of 3, 4, 5, 6? What are the rules on that, Kim?
Basically, they're assigned to a family.
Okay.
So however many children each family has is the number of children that they are assigned to. They can have more than one case, however, if they're able to handle it. Several of our volunteers are retired, so they have more time on their hands and they can handle more than one family at a time.
Okay. Did you have, Daniel?
Yes. Speaking of cases, can you kind of take us through the process of how you guys receive cases and what do you do with them as soon as you get them?
Sure. So typically a hotline call is placed to DCFS, and then if the children are removed, the DCFS has 48 hours to go before a judge. And the judge will say, yes, you should have taken these children, or no, you shouldn't have. And almost never does the judge say, no, you shouldn't have taken these children. So at that point, Casa is assigned. And we just begin our advocacy from there. So the parents go to then an admit-deny hearing, where if they admit the charges that have been brought against them, then a service plan is implemented, which is handled strictly by DCFS. We don't have any part of that. And then the parents work toward completing their service plan, whether it's drug counseling, mental health counseling, domestic violence counseling. They have to have a job. They have to have a home for the children to return to. Just basic things like that, steps that they have to complete to get their children back. And as Casa, we monitor the children along the way and make sure that they will be going to a safe home if they return home, or advocating for them to be adopted if we don't feel that going home is in their best interest.
And what is the time frame for some, or is that a tough question to ask? I mean,
It's really tough, especially with COVID. That has made a lot of continuances in the cases, but typically 24 months is a good solid number. There are parents that really step it up and get their services done and get their kids back, but sadly that is not what we see the most of.
I want to get to COVID in a minute, but I want to go back to what you said, something that to me was a little bit concerning and alarming when you said that there's infants with cocaine or meth. Do you think, I know this is a question you really can't answer, but what has led you to believe that that's a bit, why, I guess, do you think that's on the uptick in Coles and Cumberland counties?
I think that with the COVID also, but also the unemployment rates have really jumped recently with LSC and Mattoon closing. GE closed last year, I believe it was. And then with COVID, services were not available for parents that are struggling with addiction, and they couldn't go to their AA meetings or their NA meetings because they just weren't having them. And so boredom, unemployment, the ability to just be at home and use drugs.
And how has COVID changed, the lives of not just the board of directors, but the lives of the people that are working with the students as an advocate? I keep saying students, I mean children.
It's difficult because for a long time we weren't allowed to visit with the children. We had to do it virtually. If you're not physically laying your eyes on the children, you don't know if if something's going on in the home, you can't, you're just seeing a small window of them. You don't know if somebody's standing off behind them over here, listening to what they're saying, kind of coaching them on what to say. So it's been a very big challenge for us to make sure that we are advocating as best we can for the children.
But by the way, all the information which talks about privacy, just so you know too, the board members do not know names of people either. Any information we get about what's going on would be through Kim at board meetings, and periodically we have had our advocates come in and give a little presentation to board so that board members can see what they're going through and what kind of procedures have happened and that sort of thing, so they can get a feel for it that way.
With 171 cases between Coles and Cumberland, that's really put COVID has put an extra strain on you
Yes.
with not being able to be in touch with those families and children. But you did get new offices before since the last time we've
Yes.
had you both in here on the show. So talk about where you're located and the new offices.
Yes, we moved out of the courthouse basement, which we were very thankful to have the space in the courthouse, but we needed to expand. So we are directly across the street from the main entrance of the courthouse now. We are on the south side of the square, and we are kind of nestled right in between Smallhorn Law, which is on the corner, and Z's Music is on the other side of us.
Okay.
Much more accessible.
Yes.
Daniel, have anything else on your mind back there?
Yeah, I have a question. You mentioned a couple of times earlier about volunteers. Can you kind of tell us about the recruitment process and some of the requirements for volunteers?
Sure. The only stringent requirement that we have is every volunteer must be 21. That's just
That makes sense.
national Casa standard. So if you are a volunteer, you will be required to complete 30 hours worth of training, which is provided at no cost to you by Casa, and then sit through some juvenile court proceedings, so courtroom observation, and then you are assigned a case as a volunteer after that.
And
Would you have a mentor or anything with that first case to kind of guide you to say that?
Yes.
You wouldn't just throw them in.
Oh, no. My gosh, no.
I was hoping you were going there. I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that in board members, many times the names will come to us through referrals. And before becoming a board member, they actually will interview with Kim and maybe several members of the current board.
Okay. And is there a need right now? This was just the kind of Dale picked this date to come in. Are you in the need for board members or the need for volunteers right now at Casa?
I need volunteers desperately. Right now we have 23 active volunteers, and I could honestly use about 30 more. We just have such a tremendous need for volunteers right now. My staff carries a lot of these cases. I'm not supposed to have any cases, and right now I have 6.
Holy cow.
Because we just don't have enough volunteers.
By the way, there are really no down or up times for that. That is literally a year-round process, volunteers for both advocates and for board members.
If I heard you correctly, with students now starting, Mattoon went back today. I believe Charleston's going back to the beginning of next month, and some of the other areas. I'm not sure about Cumberland, but when school goes back in, the cases actually increase, right?
Yes, correct.
So the word she used was desperately need volunteers, and we'll get to some contact information later on. But obviously, you can Google Casa and find out that as well. So desperately is a scary word to hear, and it's one of those unfortunate words when you think about it. When there's 171 cases is down, and we need more volunteers. So that's why you're here today, right, Dale?
That's right.
Pretty smart guy, you know that. What about community members? What can we do out there in the community, or what would you like to see the Charleston, Mattoon, Greenup, Toledo communities do for Casa?
I would like to see community participation. We host fundraisers that it would be great for the community to participate in. We could use donations all the time. We do not have any kind of direct funding at all. We are grant-based, and philanthropy are basically how we operate and get our operating money.
And Dale, just handed me a sheet. You have an online auction that is going on as we speak, or it's going to get ready to start, I guess. terrible at dates.
23rd.
So talk about the online auction. What can people expect?
The auction?
Yep.
Oh, the online auction. We're going to talk about that because it was also on our website that this is going to be going.
Oh, gotcha.
For United Way. And we're part of United Way.
Oh, I see. Okay.
There's an online auction which you can read more about at the Casa website, 23rd to the 30th. A number of organizations are using this routine now.
You almost have to, unfortunately.
Because you just can't do it any other way. So in any event, I left a little flyer for the building here about that as well.
When you look right now with what's going on with Casa of East Central Illinois and the caseload, is there any other changes you see? I mean, do you have to adapt when the health department comes out with something new, and then that changes your structure? Or talk about what you have to kind of pay attention to know what you can do.
We do. We follow the public health department guidelines for visiting, for holding meetings, for holding team and family meetings. We social distance every time. We wear masks when we can't social distance, and we wear masks when we can social distance. Each foster family is different. Some of them are like, oh, we don't care if you have a mask on, just come on in, and others are like, I don't want you even to come to my house. And I know that I have stood outside of a home and just visited with the children through the front door, because that's how we had to do it. It's been incredibly difficult.
Now, how do you work with the foster families? Is that a separate entity, or is that part of Casa? How's that work?
The foster families are they're a party to the case, kind of, but removed. Since that's where the children are placed, we go to those homes and we visit them there. Because
so another entity places them and you go to their house. Okay.
That's correct. Because we want to make sure that they're safe in their foster homes, because sadly not all foster homes are good ones.
We had spoken briefly about fundraisers before and how we kind of help oversee them and plan them. Obviously in this 2020, several of ours are not going to happen because we count on face-to-face type fundraisers. But we do have committees in place working on these things. If we come up with things, they'll probably be after the first of the year. I know we have one that's still on the schedule.
Yes.
And maybe you want to mention something about that one.
Yeah, that one is scheduled for the weekend of Valentine's Day in February. Fingers crossed that we can go ahead and hold that. It'll be dueling pianos in Cumberland County.
Oh, cool.
It is so much fun. Every year, the Cumberland folks really come together and support Casa. Last year, we made, I think, close to $15,000 before our expenses. So we cleared about $11,000 last year.
And where do you have that at?
I forget.
The name of the place.
Events
in Greenup?
by MLB.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I know.
Yes.
Actually, Small World, the person who runs that, used to sell advertising for me when I worked at another radio station.
You can tell everybody how to
Laura,
get there,
yeah.
right?
It used to be a restaurant, I believe, years ago.
Yeah. It was kind of the rock. No, barbecue joint there. I know what it is. I could, but yeah, neat place. And it's Lori Dunn and her husband run that. So, MLB, yes. Daniel, look again. Another question back here.
You mentioned earlier about a hotline that people use to call to report potential cases.
Yes.
Is there any common things that you can look for within a child to determine if they may need help or not?
Honestly, children are very frank if you give them the opportunity. They may not be able to express completely what is going on with them, but typically they're very hungry or they're very withdrawn. They're having some behavior type issues. They're dirty or unkempt. Their hair's not combed. Their clothing doesn't fit well. And you have to understand that poverty is not neglect. That's not a reason to remove children from their home. It has to be a neglectful situation.
So are there warning signs for neglect that we could talk about?
Yeah,
I know that some of the stuff you just mentioned, but is there anything you just maybe we wouldn't think about?
A lot of times aggressive behavior in young children is a sign that something is going on in their home. Children aren't born mean and hateful. They learn that. Oftentimes they're acting out what they see in their home. So if dad is hitting mom or hitting the kids, that then the kids will, when they become frustrated, they will mimic that behavior that they've witnessed in their home.
Okay. The other thing is it's hard for people to come forward to, I hate to use the word tell or tattle on people, but
Correct.
that is something that's so important. If somebody, we really do need to come forward as a society.
Yes.
If not, this can go on for years, maybe, unreported.
Yes, it's so easy to say, that's not my business. I don't want to be involved, but you can call the hotline and remain anonymous. You can, and it's very important that you do that because children, they can't help their situation. They have no control over it at all, and they can't escape without help.
There you go. And we've talked a lot about the bad stuff.
Yes.
But is there any local great new success stories? I know you can't use names and stuff, but you could give us a story of a family or a child or something that has been a recent success story of Casa.
Sure. We have recently closed some cases that have been open since about 2014, 2015. These children were in care for a significantly long time, and they finally have their forever home, and that's always a great thing to see. And because of confidentiality rules and regulations, we can't advertise in the newspaper, look what we did for these kids, we got them back home. We just can't do that. But there is a lot of good things that happen too.
And with 5 or 6 years, that was probably one of those things that you get a little bit worried about whether or not they're going to make it when they get into that length. Is that just, I'm just guessing here, right?
Yes, some kids age out. They don't ever find a forever home, and they just, they're still in DCFS care at 18, they're entering college, still in DCFS care.
And are they on their own at that point then, if they can't go back to their...
They're considered independent at that point, but they still rely on DCFS to help them with schooling and housing and things like that.
Okay. Daniel?
Kind of backing off of that question, do you guys keep like a database, and do you keep in contact with children that you've worked with before? So say a case was successful, do you still keep in contact with the child like after they've grown up or a couple years later?
A lot of times advocates and children will remain in contact after the case closes. It depends on the age of the children. Typically, if they're younger, they just want to move on with their new family and not kind of have to remember those years when they were in crisis. So it just really depends. But yes, I have a family that I started my very first case with, that the children, I still will send them a Christmas card or something every year, just so they know I'm thinking about them and I haven't forgotten about them.
That's a good question. How long are the terms for the volunteers? So if someone wanted to sign up to be a volunteer, but is it a lifelong? Is it 3 years, 2 years, 1 year? What's the rules there?
We ask for a 24-month commitment because that is typically how long a case lasts. If there were any triggers or anything that you felt like you couldn't complete your time, you would be absolutely free to walk away. But we do ask for a 24-month commitment.
I would assume that people get into this and they probably enjoy is not the right word, but they really think they're doing something great for the community, so they probably stay as long as they have the time to be volunteers, correct?
Yes.
Just guessing again. I'm good at guessing, I guess. Let's get that. We're about 4 minutes left, Dania. If you have another question, there's 2 left, but we'll get back to you. But let's get your information out in case anybody would like to learn more about Casa, maybe your phone number or website or whatever.
Sure. We are located at 604 Jackson in Charleston, Illinois, and our phone number is 348-0599 with area code 217, and our website is casaeci.org.
casaeci.org. Daniel, You're writing stuff down feverishly back there.
I was. So you mentioned that you are in desperate need of about 30 volunteers.
Yes.
So for people who may be listening right now or people who may hear about it in the future, can you elaborate a little bit on the emphasis of the work that volunteers do through the organization and possibly the potential impact they may make on a child's life through the work with Casa?
The judge relies heavily on Casa reports, and we are changing children's lives every day. DCFS, their mandate, I guess, is family reunification, and sometimes that's just not feasible, and it's not what's in the child's best interest. So that's where Casa comes in, is we are telling the judge, look, I know that mom and dad have done the bare minimum to get their children back, but we just don't feel like it's safe right now for them to go home. We would like for them to have an additional 3 to 6 months counseling or domestic violence training or something like that. So that's where Casa is very important and crucial for the children, is because we aren't focused on anyone except for the children and their best interest.
A couple minutes left, Dale. I know there's a couple other things that you are wanting to get some
Well, I just
information
wanted to
on.
mention, not only is it children that we're very concerned about, but something you'll find if you're on the CASA website, a brief mention of, it's Adopt a Dog Month. And I know CASA doesn't deal with the dogs, but it is an important thing to think about as well. My wife and I happen to be foster parents for the Genesis organization, and it's Adopt a Dog Month, so we remind people, volunteer, you can donate money to it, you can spread the news, you can adopt a dog, but October is Adopt a Dog Month.
There you go. All kinds of information today.
Yep.
So you guys want to do rapid fire questions? About a minute left. I know it's your favorite thing. Yeah?
It's your 60 seconds, Beth.
Okay. Favorite hobby when you were a child? Hence child there.
I like to read.
Dale, when you were a child, what'd you like to do?
Alley baseball.
Oh, okay. When things are right again, this COVID stuff is gone, what's the first thing you want to do, Kim?
I want to go to a restaurant where I don't have to walk in with the mask on.
Dale?
Oh, definitely. My wife and I have some trips planned for next year we hope to take.
Best part of the Thanksgiving meal that's coming up in a few weeks. What's your favorite entree?
I'm going to say dessert.
Nothing wrong with that, Kim. There's nothing wrong with that.
I'm going to say having it the second time the next day.
Oh. Now here's a question that's about today. How many different masks do you own right now?
One.
Only one.
Yeah.
5.
So I got 5 or 6. Daniel, I mean,
About 4 or 5.
4 or 5. Okay, I say, have you turned your heat on yet?
Just did. Yes.
Same.
Absolutely. I'm old enough. I'm not going to wait.
I have not yet. There we go.
Oh, wow.
So, Kim, I say this every time you're here, and I know whoever sat in your chair before, what you do for this community is unbelievable. You should be commended for it, because it's not anybody couldn't do it. And hopefully the people that are out there today, a few of you will decide to be volunteers for people like Kim, who I think we're all proud as part of our community here in the Mattoon, Charleston, and Cumberland County area. So thank you so much. And Dale, you're a pretty good dude to sell, or yourself,
Oh,
right?
thanks, fella.
Dale's a great guy. Helps out everywhere. This is WEIU. Everybody, have a great day.